What if the end didn't come from war, or illness, or murder, but from something so ridiculous it sounds made up? A joke, a contest, a stunt that should have never left someone's imagination. Tonight we're counting down 20 real-world deaths so bizarre, so ironic, and so unsettling, they force one haunting question. How fragile is life? Really? Welcome back to The Final Cry. If you're drawn to the strange, the tragic, and the stories that make you rethink everything, like subscribe and hit the bell, because these are the stories no one forgets once they hear them. Let's begin with a case so absurd, historians are still debating how it was even possible. Case 1. The Dancing Plague. Strasbourg, Holy Roman Empire, modern France, 1518. Imagine waking up one morning and being physically unable to stop dancing until your heart gives out. In July of 1518, a woman named Frau Trophea stepped into the streets of Strasbourg and began to dance. No music, no celebration, just movement. Hours passed, then days. Her feet bled, her body shook. She didn't stop. Within a week, dozens joined her, then hundreds. Men, women, children. They danced in public squares, collapsed from exhaustion, stood back up, and continued. Some screaming in pain, others eerily silent. Physicians were baffled. Religious leaders blamed possession. City officials, in one of history's most catastrophic misjudgments, did the unthinkable. They hired musicians. Their logic? If people needed to dance, perhaps letting them dance it out would cure them. Instead, bodies started dropping. Victims suffered heart attacks, strokes, dehydration, and total organ failure. Eyewitnesses described people collapsing mid-step, eyes wide open, dead before they hit the ground. Estimates suggest dozens, possibly hundreds, died, not from violence but from forced motion. The cause remains debated: ergot poisoning, mass hysteria, psychological contagion. But one thing is certain: this wasn't joy, it was terror disguised as rhythm. But while this tragedy consumed a city, the next death involved just one man, and a stunt that should have ended in applause. Case 2. Over Niagara in a barrel. Niagara Falls, Canada, 1920. Everyone who looks at Niagara Falls thinks the same thing at least once. What if someone went over that? In 1920, Charles Stevens decided to answer that question for money. Unlike thrill seekers before him, Stevens wasn't prepared. His barrel was poorly constructed. There was no oxygen system, no proper reinforcement, just bravado and a prayer. He sealed himself inside and was pushed toward the edge. Tourists watched, cameras rolled. The barrel hit the falls and instantly shattered. What came out the bottom wasn't a miracle survivor, it was pieces. Recovery crews later found his arm, still clutching the Bible he'd brought for protection. But at least Stevens chose his fate. The next victim? She was just trying to win a video game. Case 3. Hold your Wii for a Wii. Sacramento, California, 2007. How much water could you drink before it kills you? In January 2007, a radio station hosted a contest called Hold Your Wii for a Wii. The rules were simple: drink water, don't urinate. Last person standing wins a Nintendo Wii. Contestants laughed, joked, chugged bottle after bottle. One of them was Jennifer Strange, a 28-year-old mother of 3. Hours passed. Her head began to hurt. She complained of nausea. DJs mocked her discomfort on air. She didn't quit. Hours after leaving the station, Jennifer collapsed at home. She was dead before paramedics arrived. Cause of death? Water intoxication, a condition where excess water dilutes sodium levels in the blood, causing the brain to swell until it shuts down. The station later claimed they didn't know water could kill you. Jennifer's children grew up without their mother because a joke went too far. But irony doesn't stop at radio contests. Sometimes it rides right off a cliff. Case 4. The Segway CEO's last ride. Thorpe Arch, England, 2010. If anyone trusted a Segway, it was the man who owned the company. Jimmy Heselden, British billionaire and Segway Inc.'s owner, took his personal Segway for a ride near his estate. The path ran alongside a steep drop into a river. Witnesses later believed the device veered, or Heselden lost control. He fell over 30 feet. By the time help arrived, he was dead. The irony was immediate, brutal, and unavoidable. The man who bet his life on personal transport lost it to one. But as shocking as that was, the next case shook the entire world because no one thought this animal could kill him. Case 5. Steve Irwin and the Stingray, Great Barrier Reef, Australia, 2006. If fearlessness had a face, it was Steve Irwin. The crocodile hunter had handled snakes, crocodiles, sharks, creatures that killed regularly. But in 2006, while filming underwater footage, Steve encountered a stingray. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't hunting, but when startled, the ray lashed its tail. The barb pierced Steve's chest directly into his heart. Death was almost immediate. The world mourned a man who had dedicated his life to wildlife conservation, taken by one of the least expected animals on Earth. 5 stories down, and somehow they only get stranger, because next, we're talking about people who literally laughed themselves to death. Case 6. Laughed to death. Various locations, 3rd century BC to 1975. What if the last thing you ever felt was joy? History records several cases where laughter didn't end in smiles, but in silence. One of the early earliest involves Chrysippus, a Greek philosopher from the 3rd century BC. According to legend, he watched a donkey eat fermented figs, joked that the animal should be given wine to wash them down, and then laughed so violently he collapsed and died. Centuries later, in 1975 England, a man named Alex Mitchell sat down to watch The Goodies, a British comedy show. One particular episode struck him so deeply that he laughed uncontrollably for more than 25 minutes straight. His wife later reported that he slumped back on the couch and never breathed again. Doctors believe intense laughter can trigger cardiac arrhythmia, oxygen deprivation, or fatal heart failure, especially in people with undiagnosed conditions. Joy became overload. The body simply couldn't keep up, but if laughter killing you sounds unlikely, wait until you hear what fell out of the sky in the next case. Case 7, the tortoise from the sky. Jala, Sicily, c. 456 BC. Sometimes fate doesn't chase you. It drops straight onto your head. The ancient playwright Aeschylus, often called the father of tragedy, reportedly died in one of the most ironic ways imaginable. According to historical accounts, an eagle, flying overhead with a tortoise in its talons, mistook Aeschylus's bald head for a rock, perfect for cracking open its meal. The bird released the tortoise. It struck Aeschylus in the skull. He died instantly. What makes this story chilling is that legend claims Aeschylus had been warned he would die by a falling object, so he spent time outdoors to avoid collapsing buildings. The prophecy still came true, just creatively. But ancient absurdity doesn't hold a monopoly on strange deaths. The next one happened in the modern world, at full speed. Case 8, struck by a flying ray, Florida Keys, USA, 2008. What are the odds that the ocean jumps back at you? In 2008, a woman riding in a speedboat off the Florida coast was enjoying a calm day on the water when a spotted eagle ray launched itself out of the sea. Rays can leap several feet high, but this one collided directly with her. The impact caused catastrophic blunt force trauma. By the time the boat reached shore, she was dead. It wasn't a shark attack. It wasn't a boating accident. It was a perfect collision between human movement and animal instinct. And somehow, the next death is even smaller, quieter, and harder to believe. Case 9, drowned in a cat's water bowl. Reefton, New Zealand, 2001. Can you drown in something smaller than a cereal bowl? In 2001, a man returned home after drinking and walked across his icy porch. He slipped, fell forward, and struck his head, knocking himself unconscious. His face landed in his cat's water bowl. Unable to move, unable to breathe, he drowned. Police initially questioned the scene because it seemed impossible, but forensic evidence confirmed it. Blunt force trauma followed by accidental drowning, a household object, a moment of bad luck, a fatal chain reaction. But if you think that sounds unbelievable, the next man died trying to prove how strong glass really was. Case 10, the unbreakable window fall, Toronto, Canada, 1993. How confident would you be betting your life on glass? Gary Hoy, a lawyer at a prestigious Toronto firm, loved demonstrating how strong the office's floor-to-ceiling windows were. He'd run at them full force to show interns they wouldn't break, and they didn't. Until one night during a party, Gary did it again. The glass held, but the frame didn't. The entire window panel popped out. Gary Hoy fell 24 stories to his death. His demonstration had always been correct. The glass was unbreakable. The assumption was fatal. 10 cases down, and the line between absurd and terrifying is starting to blur. Because next, we enter the world of exploding fruit, falling coconuts, and deaths that feel like punchlines until they aren't. Case 11, the watermelon that exploded, India, 2017. What's the most harmless thing you've ever held in your hands? In 2017, a man in India attempted a stunt meant to impress friends, breaking a watermelon with his head. He positioned the fruit, braced himself, and slammed forward. The watermelon burst. So did his skull. The impact caused massive head trauma and internal bleeding. He collapsed almost immediately and was pronounced dead shortly after. Doctors later confirmed the force required to break a watermelon rivals that of blunt force impact injuries seen in severe accidents. A fruit meant to cool you down in the heat became a fatal object in a single second. But sometimes you don't need to do something reckless at all. Sometimes danger just wanders up behind you. Case 12, killed by a cow, England, 2013. You've passed cows hundreds of times. What are the odds one decides today is your last? In rural England, a man walking his dog through farmland encountered a herd of cattle. Normally docile, cows can become aggressive, especially when calves are nearby. Without warning, the herd charged. He was trampled, crushed under hundreds of kilograms of muscle and panic. Emergency responders arrived too late. Statistics later revealed that more people in the UK are killed by cows each year than by sharks worldwide. It wasn't a safari. It wasn't extreme terrain, just a footpath he'd walked before. And if large animals don't scare you, maybe something much smaller will. Case 13, death by toothpick, United States, 1982. What's the smallest object you've swallowed without thinking? In 1982, a man unknowingly swallowed a wooden toothpick, possibly hidden in food. Days later, he began experiencing severe abdominal pain. Doctors were unable to identify the cause until it was too late. The toothpick had punctured his intestine, allowing bacteria to spread spread throughout his body. Sepsis followed. Despite surgery, the infection overwhelmed his organs. He died, not from choking, not from poison, but from a sliver of wood smaller than a matchstick. Medical journals later warned that swallowed toothpicks are among the most dangerous foreign objects due to their invisibility on X-rays. But the next death didn't even involve swallowing anything. It simply fell from above. Case 14. Death by coconut, India, 2017. What if gravity chose you? In tropical regions, coconuts fall every day. Most land harmlessly, some don't. In 2017, a man walking beneath a palm tree was struck directly on the head by a falling coconut. The impact fractured his skull. Despite immediate medical attention, he died from brain injuries shortly after. Researchers have estimated that falling coconuts kill more people annually than shark attacks, a statistic that sounds absurd until you realize how often humans walk beneath palm trees. No warning, no sound, just impact. But if that felt unavoidable, the next case is all about a split-second decision. Case 15. Crushed by his own car, Canada, 2021. How dangerous could a drive-thru be? In 2021, a man pulling through a drive-thru dropped his credit card outside the car. Instead of parking, he leaned out to grab it, leaving the vehicle in motion. The car rolled forward. His body was pinned between the door and the structure. By the time bystanders reacted, the injuries were catastrophic. He died at the scene. It wasn't speed. It wasn't recklessness. Just one small decision made automatically. 15 stories in, and we're not done yet. Because next, things get stranger, darker, and harder to explain, including a man found dead inside a dinosaur. Case 16. Death inside a dinosaur, Barcelona, Spain, 2021. How do you die inside a sculpture meant for children? In a public square in Barcelona stood a giant papier-mâché Stegosaurus, a playful art installation. One day, a man dropped his phone through a small opening in the statue's leg. He climbed inside to retrieve it. He never came out. Hours later, his body was found wedged inside the hollow structure. He had become stuck, unable to turn around or free himself. Cause of death: asphyxiation, a modern warning about confined spaces and the danger of underestimating them. But the next case didn't involve being stuck. It involved being hit by something no one expects to fly. Case 17. The bear through the windshield, Canada, reported case. What's the last thing you expect to see flying toward your face on the highway? In a reported Canadian incident, a vehicle struck a bear at high speed. The impact launched the animal directly through the windshield. Both the driver and the bear were killed instantly. The physics were brutal, the moment unavoidable. It was a reminder that no matter how advanced our machines become, nature still outweighs them. And speaking of nature turning suddenly hostile, the next man tried to escape one danger, only to meet another. Case 18. The window that became a grave, Cancun, Mexico, 2021. How does a human body end up stuck, head first, inside a wall? In 2021, hotel staff in Cancun discovered something horrifying. A man's body lodged upside down inside a narrow window opening, his legs dangling outward. Initial speculation ran wild. Crime? Break-in? Something darker? Investigators later concluded it was likely a tragic accident. The man may have attempted to enter or exit the building through the window, possibly intoxicated, lost balance, and became trapped. Blood rushed to his head. His chest was compressed. He suffocated. No screams were heard. No one noticed until it was far too late. A quiet, bizarre death, frozen in a position that still confuses those who see the photographs. But if getting stuck seems unlikely, wait until you hear where the next man got trapped. Case 19. Escaping bees into piranhas, Brazil, 2021. What's worse, being stung or being eaten alive? In rural Brazil, a man was attacked by a swarm of aggressive bees. Panicking, he did what instinct demanded. He ran straight into a river. What he didn't know was that the river was home to piranhas. Witnesses later reported he struggled briefly before disappearing beneath the surface. His body was recovered later with severe bite injuries. A chain of survival instincts, each logical, ended in a nightmare no one could escape. And finally, we end where absurdity reaches its peak, because the last death didn't involve animals, stunts, or freak accidents. Just the human body giving up. Case 20. When the body simply fails. Various locations documented cases. What if nothing goes wrong except you? Across medical history, there are cases where individuals died during ordinary, low-risk actions. Standing up too fast, coughing violently, stretching, or even sneezing. Blood pressure drops, arteries rupture, hearts misfire. No warning signs, no drama, just silence. Doctors call it sudden unexplained death. A reminder that the line between living and not can be thinner than anyone wants to believe. 20 stories, 20 endings that feel unreal, until you remember they happened to real people. Some deaths came from arrogance, some from bad luck, some from moments so ordinary they barely felt dangerous. And maybe that's the scariest part. Life doesn't always end with meaning. Sometimes it ends with irony. Thank you for watching The Final Cry. If these stories made you think or sent a chill down your spine, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next descent into the strange and tragic, because the final cry always comes when you least expect it.